Do you want to become a police officer but have really no idea how to get started in that process? Well, in today's video, I'm going to talk about what goes into being a law enforcement officer, what are the steps to get hired by an agency, and then how can you be successful as a police officer or a deputy sheriff in whatever agency you choose. So let's start the video off. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Colin Whittington. I'm a former law enforcement officer. So I was a deputy sheriff and a sergeant for the largest sheriff's office in Virginia, the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office. I worked on patrol, community policing as the agency's public information officer, and I was then promoted to the sergeant position overseeing the entire recruiting and background investigation unit. So I supervised a team of about 20 or 30 recruiters and background investigators, and we worked to hire and do the background investigations for hundreds of law enforcement officers every single year. So I have a ton of experience in this area. I've also just started a new company. It's called Become a Cop, and the website is becomeacop.org. And I help people who are interested in becoming law enforcement officers get through the background investigation process, find the right agency, and get hired and become a police officer or deputy sheriff or federal agent if you want to as well. In today's video, I'm really going to talk about local and state law enforcement. I'll do other videos in the future talking about federal, but this is the one I wanted to focus on today. So, if you're thinking of becoming a police officer, that's awesome. You may have heard the law enforcement profession is going through a bit of a rough time over the last 5 to 10 years or so, with many agencies struggling to recruit and retain their officers. But this doesn't mean that becoming an officer has become any easier. The lengthy background processes, the numerous agencies you can pick from, there's a lot that goes into becoming a police officer. And being an officer in law enforcement is a pretty challenging career. I'm not going to lie. You're going to have long hours. You're going to work nights. You're going to work weekends and holidays. You might miss out on family events. You're going to see some terrible things and have to do some pretty rough things as well, getting in fights, potentially having to use deadly force. So being a police officer is something you should, first of all, really think about. Is it the right move for you? Is it the right move for your family? For me and for hundreds of thousands of other people, it was absolutely the right move. And I loved every minute in that career. But it is something that you shouldn't rush into. So take your time and really consider, is this the right move for me and my family? And if it is, that's awesome. So let's start talking about, first of all, what are some of the basic or minimum requirements to become a police officer? For pretty much every single agency in the country, you have to be a United States citizen. No green card holder or legal resident, you have to be a citizen. All right, so that's the first hurdle for many of you. If you're not a citizen, it's going to be very tough to become an officer unless you go through the citizenship process first. Most agencies also require you to be at least 21 years of age or older. In the local and state level agencies, there's very rarely an upper limit age requirement or age limit, unlike the federal, where it's in the mid 30s. Like my agency, we hired people who are brand new into law enforcement in their 50s even. So if you're in your later part of your life or middle part of your life, you could still consider becoming a law enforcement officer. But on the minimum side, you have to be at least 21 years of age. For education, you typically have to have at least a high school diploma or a GED. Some agencies do require an associate's or even bachelor's degree, but those are becoming less common. But pretty much everywhere requires you to have at least a GED or a high school diploma. You also do have to have a valid driver's license. That's where a lot of candidates get hung up as well. They have a bad driving history and their licenses are suspended or revoked. You can't become a law enforcement officer until that's resolved. You have to drive a cruiser around. So if you can't drive, it's going to be a little hard to get anywhere. So those are the basic minimum requirements. You then also have to go through a lengthy background investigation process where they're going to, first of all, test you physically. Are you physically fit? They're going to test how you speak and what are your reasoning for becoming a law enforcement officer. And those are going to be the panel interviews, the background investigation questions, and things like that. Then they're also going to dive into your actual background to see if you are a morally sound person, if you're the right kind of person to go into law enforcement. And that really is absolutely essential in this current age. We saw back in 2020 the actions that one officer had, not just on a city or a state, but the entire country and even the world. The reaction to the George Floyd incident was global, and it really shined a light on law enforcement and caused a lot of disruption in that industry. So agencies are having to put a lot of emphasis in doing very thorough background investigation processes. For my agency, the typical background investigation took around 4 to 6 months or so. So please don't think that if you apply today, you're going to get that job tomorrow and immediately start working. It's just not going to happen. It's probably going to take at least 2 to 3 months, if not longer. So be prepared for the entire part of it. So, what goes into actually applying? Let's say you wanted to apply for the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office, which is where I worked. The very, very, very first step is to actually fill out an application. This application is typically done by the county, the city, or the state, and it's very generic. It's asked for your name, your social, your address, date of birth, general things like that. The agency then will have a very specific personal history or screening questionnaire. For us, it was about 15, 17 pages long. And in it, you go through your entire history. So you're going to talk about things, of course, like your name and all that stuff as well. But then you're going to go into your residential history, wherever you lived, your educational background, where did you go to school, and what dates were you there, your employment history, what jobs, if any, have you held, who were your supervisors, what were your dates there, any type of workplace issues, were you fired, let go, investigated for anything. Drug history, that's a big one that gets a lot of people disqualified. They'll ask you about your drug history. My agency literally listed out every single drug type you can think of, from marijuana all the way to cocaine, heroin, whatever else. You have to go through there and select which ones you've done and the most recent date. All right. So if you smoked marijuana and it was 5 years ago, put that date down. Now, I'll cover this really quickly here and again later on. Honesty is essential in this part. All right. Especially for things like, let's say you smoke marijuana. That's not uncommon. Honestly, pretty much everybody nowadays has, right? The issue isn't you smoking marijuana. The issue is you lying about it now. Okay. So let's say you smoked pot 5 years ago. You put it down, no problem at all. We'll look into it. We'll talk to you about it. Make sure you're not doing it now. Move on with our life. Move on with your background investigation process. But let's say you write down, nope, never smoked my marijuana in my life. We then go into the background investigation process, talk to some friends, talk to some neighbors, talk to some employers, whatever else. We find out he did smoke marijuana 5 years ago. The issue, again, isn't you smoking pot. The issue is you lying about it, because you smoked 5 years ago, but you're lying about it today. And that deception, at least from my old agency, automatic disqualifier. There's no faster way to get disqualified from a background investigation process than to lie. So make sure you're totally honest on that screening questionnaire, because what you put down there is it's set. You can't really change it once you've submitted it. Okay, after the drug history, it'll also talk about your driving history. What have you done as far as driving goes? Any crashes, speeding tickets, license revokes, anything like that? All right. Okay. So what happens then is your application and your screening questionnaire get funneled back to the agency. So my team will look at it. We'll look through all these screening questionnaires and applications we receive, and we'll see which candidates at least meet the minimum qualifications. We'll look at resumes and things like that as well. So if you ever need help with your resume, reach out to me. That's one of the things that I do offer. But we look at all the entire package and what the candidate brings to the table. And if a candidate meets our requirements for what we're looking for, we will invite him or her to a group assessment. And for us, it was a physical fitness test and a panel interview. So you, as well as 30 other people or so, would come in about once a month, and once every 2 weeks, we would host these. And a group of 30 would come in, and we would put them through the physical fitness test and the panel interview. The fitness test for us was a 1.5-mile run, maximum push-ups, maximum sit-ups, a vertical jump test, and a few other smaller tests as well. That's pretty standard for most agencies. Some agencies do like obstacle course tests, where they put you through an obstacle course and test your general fitness. And some other do a few other things as well. You don't have to be a track star, an Olympic athlete, or anything else like that. What we want to see is effort and a decent level of fitness. If you can barely get off the couch or off the chair, that's an issue. But if you can come in there, and you run a 12-minute mile, but nothing amazing, right? But you show the effort, that's going to mean a lot more than someone who's really fit, who's just dogging it and doesn't care. So make sure you show that effort. Then the panel interview, they're going to ask you a series of questions. Questions simply as, why do you want to be a police officer? Some scenario-based questions, perhaps. What would you do in this situation? And they're not looking for you to have any kind of legal experience or knowledge. They're just trying to see how you think and how you think on your feet. So be very prepared, be respectful, and have a great answer for why you want to join law enforcement and why you want to join that agency. If all that goes well, we move on to the background investigation process, where we will actually assign you to an investigator who will dive into your life. They will look into everything you've done in your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You'll come in for an interview with him or her. You'll do a polygraph. You'll do a psych test, a medical test. And all along, your investigator will be running credit history checks on you, driving history checks, criminal history checks. They'll be looking at your Facebook, your Instagram, your X, whatever else. So make sure your social media is clean. They'll talk to your neighbors. You'll provide references. So usually 3 to 5 references you provide. We'll talk to them. Usually, most of the time, candidates aren't providing references that will say anything bad about them. So we understand that we're not going to get much out of those. So those are what we call provided references because you provided them to us. What we do then is ask the provided references, who else can we talk to that knows about Jim or Sarah or Stephen or whoever else? So that person, your provided reference, will then tell us somebody else. Oh, you should talk to Jim over here. Or sorry, I already said Jim, but let's say Matthew over here. Matthew knows Jim very well. You should talk to him. So then we go to Matthew. And that's what we call a developed reference, which means we developed that person. And that's usually where we find the juicy information because that person was never told that they could be expecting a call from you or from our agency. And they might say things that they didn't know they shouldn't say. And that's where we typically find candidates in a lie. So make sure you are being honest the whole time and honestly tell any of your friends to expect calls from the agency you applied to. We talk to neighbors as well, your current or former bosses, and things like that. If all that goes well, you pass the polygraph, you pass the psych, the medical, typically you'll come in for one final interview with a high-ranking member of the agency. For my agency, it was the sheriff himself. He wanted to interview every single person that he was going to hire. And for other agencies, the larger ones, you might talk to a major or a colonel or perhaps the chief of police. You never know. But that's a really important one where they really want to see why you want to work there and how you hold yourself. So make sure you dress professional. If you're a guy, suit and tie if you can. For the women, the equivalent of that. Come in and have a great answer again for why you want to work for that agency specifically. So spend time on the agency's website, on their social media platforms, and learn what they have to offer and how you could add to that. So now you get hired. You did it. You're now technically a law enforcement officer, but not really. You still have a long way to go. So you get hired. The next step is the police academy. Typically, the academy is 6 days a week. Most agencies now no longer have the live-in academies. This is not something we do anymore. Some agencies, especially the state police ones, like Maryland State Police, I think, they still have the live-in academies. But for most cases, you get to go home every day. That's how it was for my agency. But for most cases, you get there at 6 in the morning, you stay through 3, 4, 5 at night, depending on the day. Sometimes you might even come overnight for nighttime evaluations. And the academy is a mixture of amazing excitement and unbelievable boredom. I'll be honest with you. There were some really boring times, but also some really fun times. So you will obviously go to classes. You'll have legal classes almost every single day where an instructor will teach you about legal topics. You'll learn arrest procedures. You'll learn handcuffing. You'll do defensive tactics where you learn how to defend yourself. You'll do firearms. You'll do driving. You'll do fitness training. You'll do all kind of things. And it's honestly a great time. You kind of learn to work together as a team. You get to know your coworkers very well. And it's an interesting experience for sure. I really enjoyed the firearms and the driving and the fitness, of course, as well. And even though at the time it sucked, getting pepper sprayed or OC sprayed was something I look back on really fondly now. And that's something that will happen to you as well. They'll expose you to OC to make sure that you understand how it feels and how you can react to it. And depending on the agency, you might also get tasered during your academy training as well. But let's say you graduate the academy, you then go on to field training. This is a 3 to 4 month process where you are assigned to at least one, if not up to 4 different field training officers who are senior or experienced police officers, and they will walk you through the process of becoming a solo officer. So usually it's steps 1 through 4, with 1 being where you do most of the shadowing and you slowly transition to doing more and more of the work, all the way to step 4, where you are running the show completely on your own, and the officer is simply there to observe to make sure you're not doing anything too wrong. And once that is done, they hand you the keys to a cruiser, and you are now a police officer, and you will be assigned to a shift, day shift, night shift, wherever else, and you can hit the ground running and just having a phenomenal career. Again, my name is Colin Whittington. I am now the owner of becomeacop.org, and I help people become law enforcement officers. This video was a really quick overview of the entire process, but there's so much more that goes into it. If you want one-on-one help, I offer that, whether it just be one coaching call Or I have an entire program where I work with you from day one all the way through FTO, where I'm your guide and your resource and your mentor through the entire process. So go to becomeacomp.org or comment down below if you're interested. And be sure to subscribe to this channel because I'm always going to be posting videos like this one that will hopefully help you become a police officer in the future. All right, guys, stay safe out there and start applying. And hopefully I will see you in a cruiser very soon.